Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolute geopolitical cliffhanger, one that honestly has the entire international community holding its breath right now. We're looking at the highly complex and frankly often conflicting reports surrounding a potential pause in the conflict between the United States and Iran. It's a situation moving at breakneck speed, with completely different narratives emerging depending on which capital you're listening to. And that brings us to the real core of what we're examining today. Are the US and Iran actually on the brink of a lasting peace, or are they just hitting the pause button? I mean, is this reported ceasefire a genuine stepping stone to a permanent solution, or is it merely a temporary political maneuver that just allows both sides to regroup? That is the exact question we're going to answer today by looking directly at the statements, the actions, and the reality on the ground. So, here's our roadmap for getting there. First, we'll look at the proposed 60-day pause. Second, the U.S. position. Third, Iran's stance and their denials. Fourth, the flashpoints on the ground. And finally, we'll wrap up with a reality check. Let's jump right into Section 1, a 60-day pause, the catalyst for negotiations. 60 days. According to recent reports, the negotiating teams from the US and Iran have closed in on a framework to extend a ceasefire for exactly 60 days. This specific 2-month window is what all the current diplomatic energy is orbiting around right now. However, it's absolutely crucial to note right up front that while this framework has been discussed, it hasn't yet been fully approved or formalized by the top leadership. So, it's a proposed window of time, definitely not a signed treaty. Moving to Section 2, the U.S. position, confidence and economic hopes. The current negotiating posture of the United States is probably best summarized by a quote from U.S. President Donald Trump during a recent interview. He stated that while the Iranians are crafty and very good negotiators, quote, "In the end, we have all the cards because we've defeated them militarily." He also made it crystal clear that military action remains firmly on the table. His line in the sand is simply whether the final deal is good for the United States. If it isn't, he warned they could go right back on the offensive. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is also framing the immediate future with a lot of optimism. He noted that while they aren't at a final agreement just yet, they are very close. The administration seems highly optimistic about what this deal actually achieves. Vance claims that assuming a final agreement is reached, the U.S. is reopening the Strait of Hormuz, has already decimated Iran's conventional military, and is in a position to substantially set back Iran's nuclear program over the long term. And there's a massive economic component to the U.S. strategy here as well. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been watching these negotiating teams go back and forth, and his prediction is incredibly optimistic for the American economy. He believes that once this war ends, oil and gas prices could come down very quickly. Okay, Section 3, Iran's stance and denials, drawing the red lines. While the U.S. is projecting that a deal is very close, Iranian media has completely pushed back. Reports out of Iran are outright denying that any 60-day ceasefire agreement has been reached. They've explicitly stated that absolutely no memorandum of understanding has been finalized yet. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi really drew a hard line here, stating clearly, Iran will not accept anything that is not in line with our interests. He emphasized that Tehran will not react to what Americans are saying publicly. They're only going to act on official messages they actually receive. Furthermore, he issued a stern warning that Iran will respond to any violation of the ceasefire by the U.S. Beyond just the negotiating table, the rhetoric remains fiercely adversarial. In a statement read on Iranian state television, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei accused the U.S. of trying to create division and social fragmentation within Iran. He claimed this was essentially an attempt by the United States to compensate for its failures. Let's look at Section 4, flashpoints and friction, the chaos on the ground. There are 3 distinct, active subplots severely complicating these negotiations right now. We have tensions regarding Oman and the Strait of Hormuz, a heavily disputed military incident in Bushehr province, and an urgent diplomatic push by Pakistan. Let's break these down real quick. First up, the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump recently threatened to blow up Oman if it entered into any agreement with Iran to charge tolls in this vital global shipping lane, clearly wanting to strictly enforce freedom of navigation. While in rapid response, the Omani ambassador had a call with the U.S. Treasury Secretary, assuring him that Oman has absolutely no plans to toll the strait. He emphasized that Oman and the U.S. have had 200 years of good relations, and they want 200 more. Second, we have a major factual dispute regarding military action. Iranian state television recently claimed that their forces destroyed a U.S. aircraft near Jam in the Bushehr province. However, U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, categorically denied this report.
They stated that no U.S. aircraft was shot down and that all U.S. air assets are fully accounted for. It really highlights the sheer fog of war and the friction occurring right alongside these peace talks. Third, we're seeing major outside players stepping in. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar is heading to Washington to meet with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Islamabad is actively attempting to negotiate a peace pact to broker a permanent end to the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. So the international community isn't just watching from the sidelines, they're actively trying to intervene.
Finally, Section 5, the reality check, expert analysis. The absolute most crucial point here is understanding the definition of what is actually on the table. Dr. Alan Burstein, a political science professor and Israel Institute fellow at Tufts University, points out that even in the most optimistic vision, this 60-day window is not a final agreement. It's simply a memorandum of understanding, an agreement to keep negotiating for an agreement. We are nowhere near a new era lacking confrontation. This just pushes the timeline a little bit forward. And you see, a 60-day delay is incredibly useful for both leaders to declare domestic victories to their respective bases. For the U.S., President Trump can go to the American people and say, look, I've opened the Straits of Hormuz and the economy is doing better. Meanwhile, for Iran, their leadership can go to their citizens and say, we forced the United States to withdraw and we got our frozen assets returned. It's a temporary arrangement that serves immediate political needs on both sides perfectly.
So this memorandum is really just postponing the current situation for 2 months. In 60 days, after all the domestic victories are claimed and the negotiations conclude, are we genuinely heading toward a lasting de-escalation? Or are we just setting the stage for another round of conflict? Keep that question in mind as you watch the headlines unfold over the coming weeks. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.